chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse answered, but he is tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him, we will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent and had him brought in. He was ruddy with a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. He is the one. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David in power. Samuel then went to Ramah. Now, Samuel had been prophet. And when he started as prophet, he was recognized by most of the tribes as the leader of Israel. And then the people said, hey, everybody around us has a king. We want a king too. Now, I'm sure Samuel was a little hurt by this. You got me. What do you need a king for? And he goes, you know what a king will do? He'll tax you. And then he'll conscript your children into the army. So Samuel tried to convince them, you don't really want a king, but they insist. So Samuel, following God's call, anoints Saul to be king. And for a while, things are good. Saul builds an army and defeats some of their enemies. But then Saul stops listening to Samuel, and Samuel says, here's what God wants you to do. And God rejects Saul as king. Now, Samuel is upset by this because, in a way, he thinks, I failed twice. First, I failed when the people said, we need a king. Again, why should they need a king? They've got me. And second, he failed is that the king that he anointed didn't turn out right. So, Samuel's upset. And the impression I get from reading this is Samuel's probably moping around, which is why God says, okay, Samuel, how long are you going to mourn over Saul? I got something for you to do. Get over it. And he says, go pick a new king. Now Samuel's first response is, well, I can go pick a new king, but the guy that's currently king, he's not going to want to hear about that. You know, understandable. So God says, okay, do it this way. It's going to be a secret. Samuel goes to Bethlehem, calls for Jesse to bring his sons forward. And the first one shows up, and he's handsome, and he's tall. And if you were in Hollywood, central casting, and you're casting the king, he's the one you pick. And that's what Samuel thought. Oh, surely this is the one. And God says, nope, not him. And he goes through all 7 of Jesse's sons that are there. God says, but I don't look at what men look at. I look at their hearts. So finally Jesse calls David to come in from the fields where he's tending the sheep. And as David gets before Samuel, God says, yes, this is the one. Now, we're told David's pretty good looking. The description we give him, he looks like he's in good health. But he's young. He's got 7 older brothers. They're probably taller. stronger. God didn't look at their physical attributes to be king. He looked at David's heart. And God saw something in David's heart and said, this is the one I want to be king. God often picks people to do his bidding that we would never choose. Should he pick me and I wouldn't have picked me? I didn't. He did. I mean, David got 7 others. Pick one of them. Pick one of the older ones. But we're told that in some ways the other brothers are like Saul. Saul was a big man. Saul was a head taller than most of the people of Israel. Literally, he stood that much taller than them. He is considered to be a strong person. And he was a person who would get people to follow him. You know, you going down your checklist of who you want, he checks off a lot of the boxes. If you ever had to hire anybody for something, you know what I'm talking about. You got here's what I want in the candidate. The ideal candidate has these things. And you go through Saul and he checks off all the boxes that we're going to put makes a good king. But he didn't check out the one that was most important to God. And that was, where's his heart? And Samuel still got his same job description as he had for when he anointed Saul. And so he's looking at the same boxes to be checked off. He's tall, he's strong, he's good looking, he speaks well. God says, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. No, that one doesn't matter. Here's what I want. Where's his heart? I know one church I applied at one time, and they had a 4-page job description, which is ridiculous, but they did. And after I read the description, and it's very detailed, and you know there's a part of an interview, and they asked, do you have any questions for us? And I said, yeah. What do you want that's not in the job description? And of course they're thinking, what do you mean? Because we put everything we can think of in there. And I said, what is it that you can't put in a job description that you want for the person? Finally, one of them said, we want someone who will love us. That's what we want in a pastor. We want a pastor who will love us. This is what God is saying when he's picking his next king. He doesn't need to be strong. God goes, I can handle strong. You know, he doesn't need to be able to defeat your enemies. I'll take care of that. He doesn't need to be handsome. He doesn't need to be well-spoken. Even though David was these things, he needs to have a heart for God. Now, here's the good news for you. God doesn't judge you by the world's standards when he calls you. And so all of the reasons that the world will say you can't do it, The one thing God cares most about when He calls you to do His will, do you have a heart for God? I mean, it's throughout the Bible. Moses says, I can't speak, and God goes, I'll give you the words to say. Other leaders say, I have no experience in this. And God says, don't worry, I'll take care of that. Is your heart for God? Then on God's list of candidates, your resume goes right up at the top. You have a heart for God, God will find a way to use you. Doesn't matter what other skills you have or don't have. Doesn't matter what other talents you have or don't have. Now, those may play a role in how God decides to use you, but they aren't the reason He will choose to use you. If you have a heart for God, that's the only criteria He cares about. That's the only qualification for the job. God doesn't look at the things the world looks at. He looks at your heart. Our closing